The whole thing was, from that contest, there was a bunch of dudes that won, and they couldn't be down because they had their own group. They were called Life, Long Island's Finest Entertainers. Their father, Mr. Blunt, was like their manager, and he wanted to see what the deal was. I mean, y'all guys probably remember them dudes. They did a song called Say No to Crack. Say no. It was no.
Nah, that one no.
You remember them dudes. If I show you a picture, you definitely remember them.
Was that a record?
I don't think so.
It was a record.
True Life.
Say,
True Life, was that True Life? Say No to Crack.
yeah.
That's a record.
Yeah, True Life. True. Long as I, yeah, that was them. They were going to be the Kings of Pressure. But they decided. You remember them, right? See? They ended up not wanting to be down, so whatever. So he found individuals, and you know, the premise was, when you bring a group of people in that's already a group, they don't want to work because they know they're too familiar, they play around too much, smoke weed, whatever. So if he brought in different people, just being real good, you know, Chuck and Hank figured they'd probably be more of an onus to get the album done, because he's like, yo, you know, just business, you know what I mean? So the first people that were brought in was Double D and his brother Crack J. They were brothers. Easy Breeze, who actually was a best friend of Double D, and I swear Smooth B sounds exactly like him, because he was around before Smooth B, and Smooth B sounds, I mean, I'm telling you. And then there was King A. He was from Freeport. So everybody was from Hempstead. King A was from Freeport, I was from Uniondale. And they made me the leader, which didn't sit well because I was the youngest. Well, me and Crack J were the same age, but I was the youngest. I was a Puerto Rican and they were all black. And you know, I was a short dude. There were these big guys. It was like, yo, why this dude the leader? You know, but he was like, you know, the premise was like a Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. The DJ's the leader. And there was a dude named Spank. Spank wasn't really that nice, but they wanted 2 DJs. And as soon as he figured out it was work involved, he quit. And you know, because he wanted to be on the newest trend. He ended up selling drugs or whatever. And we did You Know How to Reach Us, Armed and Dangerous, which, by the way, the version of Armed and Dangerous that's on the Red Alert album is an actual 4-track recording on a Tascam 4-track. We went to the real studio, re-recorded. They were like, we like the vibe better on the 4-track, so we kept it. And then of course, you know, the beat for Jam, You Know How to Reach Us, Give Me the Mic, which we did at INS Studios, where Duke Booty was working on all that stuff he did back in the days. Don't call me Fletcher, as he used to say. So that's how the Kings of Pressure thing came about. But right after that was done, I started doing so much stuff with the Bomb Squad, which wasn't named the Bomb Squad until the 3rd album. So no, the Bomb Squad didn't produce Bummers the Show or Nations. They only produced Fear, because that name didn't exist until then. So I was with.
I think from Ice Cube, I think.
Right. And I don't even. Hank did what? The Bomb Squad. The name of the Bomb Squad was created by Chuck.
Oh.
And that was another story. And I don't want to blast Hank, but there's a reason why. You know, Hank wasn't really around during those records. Let's just put it that way. And Chuck wanted to kind of like mask that a little bit. So he created the Bomb Squad as an umbrella name, so that, you know, Hank would be safe from that, because Hank was getting publishing on songs he didn't write. Now, I say he didn't produce them, I'm saying he didn't write them. So it's a different story, because Quincy Jones didn't write anything on Thriller except for PYT. You know, but I digress. So I was working with them guys, and because of that, the Kings of Pressure kind of like imploded. Crack J went to college, which was the best thing in the world for him, because now he's a professor at the University of Southern Connecticut. And Breeze disappeared for a while, so it ended up being King A and pretty much Double D. And then since I left the group, kind of, Jay Finesse came in. And they did a whole album. A lot of them songs were actually Double D, Easy Breeze routines, like Nosy Bodies and things like that. And for the record, Double D had to be one of the best freestylers I've ever heard in my life. He made that the whole first verse he did on You Know How to Reach Us was freestyle. The dude was phenomenal. And the whole end, that Strong Out of Troop and Effect piece, was all freestyle. Everybody was in the booth just doing whatever they thought, and it was phenomenal. Everybody was supposed to write 2 verses, and one of the MCs only had 1 verse. So while they were in there recording, I was writing a verse. So Chuck was like, Juice, you know, you got something? And I'm like, yeah. So I went in there and did the verse. Yeah, well, you know, you hear like DJ Juice likes to say he created the blend. First of all, hip hop was created from blending. Like, you know, other musics and what we would term hip hop drums or whatever. But as far back as the mid 80s, maybe 84, 85, actually 86 I think is when I got on the radio with Jeff Force at RHU at Hofstra University. And I would also go up to BAU with Chuck and them, obviously, when they were doing their thing. That's how they started. And they were on way before me. They were on the 83, 82, 81. They did Run DMC's first interview, which is the reason why they got their deal. Jay and D took the demo of Public Enemy #1 up to Def Jam. In any case, I was doing RHU with Jeff because I bought up the Armed and Dangerous album. Actually, so it had to be later than maybe 86, 87. I bought up to RHU the Red Alert Goes Berserk album. I'm like, yo, can you rock this? I went up there with Buster, who was with me, and Brown. They were my partners, you know. So even though I was with Kings of Pressure, whatever. I brought it up there, said, you rock this. He said, cool. And Jeff Force was a stickler for radio rules because he taught broadcasting then. So he's rocking the record. So he goes to get the Associated Press wire service, which he read on the hour, every hour, and the door slammed shut. So he was locked in for a second. He finally got out, but the record was going to end. That was playing. It wasn't my record. And you can't have dead air. And even though it's college in the middle of the night, man, so air went off, and they had the turntables that were part of the radio station. I started scratching on this big mixing console that was meant for it. And Jeff walks in and looks at me, and I'm like, uh-oh, I'm gonna get my ass kicked. I'm over here DJing on this ugly equipment that wasn't made for it. And he looks at me and he goes, move over. I move over, he sits down. Jeff Force, WRHU, post-punk progressive pop party, throws another record on. He turns it off when the record goes on. He goes, yo, how did you do that? I said, I know that you ain't supposed to have dead air, so I just wanted to kind of like hold it down till you got back. He was like, if I bring my turntables next week, would you come back? I said, oh, hell yeah, what's up? That was it. I was down there every Saturday night after that. And Brown and Buster and Dinko answered phones with my man Father Troop. Because we would do all the pre-production for all the songs up at 510. We had, before an SP1200, we had a Korg DDD1 with a little sample thing, the sample board, which I think was a whole whopping 2.5 seconds of sampling time. And that's where we learned to like speed up the records to 45 and sample it there and then detune it. And then we had an Ensoniq Mirage and a 4-track.
So what's some of your first productions you did on wax?
Was Kings of Pressure stuff.
Okay, so those numbers there.
Yeah, and then also some of the PE stuff.
Okay. Which tracks you remember being involved with production-wise?
A lot of them. It's just, it was kind of like throwing food into a pot. Like Keith will play a beat and it's like, oh, when you play a record and yo, rock this and chat, or True Mathematics. Like when we was working on For the Love in You, or we just Slick Rick's album. We were doing Teacher and all that stuff. I would scratch in pieces that eventually would sample and I would trigger manually. And it was just a process. Eric would program drums because he was a real musician, and he taught me how to program an SP1200. And INS, when we were working on How to Reach Us, he sat there and was like, yo, and he asked me what drums you want to use for the record. I told him Funky President, which was the snare. And then obviously I scratched in the bridges over, pat, tat, the end of that. And, and Chuck used this beat because he had a pager, because he was a messenger at the time. And he beeped in and we made that the hi-hat. And, and that was my first like intro to programming and that kind of thing. And, and then I had a Dr. Rhythm, so I started working with that. But me and Brown were doing that way before the Kings of Pressure out of my crib, with mixed pause button tapes. To be honest with you, right after Nations, things weren't looking good on the credit side, obviously, and on the money side. And so I just left. I said, I graduated high school, so I got to go to college, and I had no money to go to college, so I went into the military. So while I was in the military, I was stationed in California. I did a lot of production out there. And a lot of it was live band stuff, which was great because that allowed me to expand my knowledge of instruments. And I played conga percussion anyway, but then I learned how to play keys. I learned how to play bass on the keyboard. And before you know it, I started really getting more into the live thing. And I did a lot of things in San Diego. I can't even remember the name of all the groups out there.
Records that came out though?
Records that came out. And one group was called One Nation Massive. I believe one group was called Section 8 or Section 9 or something like that. So I don't remember. I even worked with J.O. Felony for a while before the Def Jam days. So it's real weird. Some of the people I don't remember, and one guy started reminding me, remember this guy? I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that dude. So, and I even worked with a rock band called The Craze. Okay, well, obviously when I got back from the military, me and Brown went to work on an album, which never came out, but it's nasty. And actually Brown called me yesterday and we're gonna revamp some of them records. Some of them, I can put them out right now, they sound just like they belong out now. Brown's an incredibly talented dude. I'm doing the Leaders of the New School album now. Got a single that we're doing right now with Son of Berserk, Leaders of the New School, Chuck D, Rakim, and Paz, called Bring That Strong Island Sound Back. And Sugar Bear might even jump on it, because we saw Sugar Bear the other day. Big up to Sugar Bear, Mr. Teddy Jackson. Yep, Ready to Penetrate. So I'm also doing the X Vandals project. I met Reconstruction frontman, Not For Profit, after he did a cover of Prophets of Rage. He contacted me about doing an album, so we did an X Vandals album. And now we're in the second X Vandals album. Guest appearances were like Eric Bobo from Cypress Hill. I think Tito Puente Jr. is supposed to do something on it. We have a couple of, like Akebulana is singing on it. You know, it's like a Puerto Rican Public Enemy type thing, punk type hip hop thing. It's real interesting, it's different. I just scored a movie for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar called On the Shoulders of Giants. That's the story of the first all-black professional basketball team. It's myself, Herbie Hancock, and Wynton Marsalis, along with the Last Poets, Chuck, and will.i.am, of all people. Great movie. Jamie Foxx narrates, and great movie. I actually saw the documentary, it's beautiful. I did the Ali rap thing with Chuck, the Muhammad Ali documentary. We got an Emmy nomination for that. I'm working on Ken Dude, Almost Famous, my man Kyle Jason. I'm working with the Cold Crush Brothers on a new album. Fearless 4, I'm working on a new album, and Crash Crew.
A lot of stuff.
Yes, I work with a lot of them, because we have a Hip Hop Gods website, hiphopgods.com, where we want to bring light to some of the cats that kind of like started this whole thing. And a lot of them have some great material, they're just not being heard. So, you know, the Son of Berserk thing is starting to gain a lot of traction right now, because their album is about to drop this week. So, album is crazy. 8 songs, old school style, no 57 songs on it, no filler. And we're touring with Public Enemy, opening on this new East Coast swing. So, you know, I mean, there's a lot more projects right now, but I'm also doing the Last Poets album.
You mentioned in the Uncle interview maybe a possibility of the King Special album. Is that still a possibility?
No, it's a definite. I'm just waiting. We're waiting for Double D, who is currently incarcerated. He'll be out soon. But once he gets out, I want to have the full complement of MCs that it was supposed to be in the beginning to do a whole album, including. Without Double, it ain't gonna be a real Kings of Pressure album. I mean, I want to do everything. I mean, I worked with Mavis Staples a few years ago. I just did a song with Mandrill a couple of years ago, and Chuck. We redid Fence Walk. I'm hooking up with War to do some stuff. Jimmy Castor we hooking up with. You know, I want to work with those kind of people. I was fortunate to do the Godfathers and Sons blues album. I mean, the blues documentary with the Chess Session musicians who have become real good friends of mine. You know, they're beautiful people and they teach me a lot. Pete Cozy, who played with Miles Davis and the Pharaohs, and Herbie and everybody, guitar player. I play with his band, which is basically a Miles Davis alumnus band. So, you know, that kind of stuff I'm trying to steer more towards, because I can learn more from it. You know, I mean, the rap stuff, I mean, it's good and all that stuff, but I mean, it's not really much for me to learn from it at this particular point. Whereas these guys could teach me so much about music and musicianship and things that I'm like, wow, and I like to sit there. The stories alone are incredible, you know? Everybody that really appreciates, you know, real music and they don't close their minds to, well, that ain't hip hop. Or that. I mean, hip hop is not a music. It's not a type of music. Hip hop is a process by which you filter yourself, you know? I mean, 2 jazz records become hip hop once I filter it through me. And then once I put it back in the sleeves and it goes in the craters, they're jazz records again. They're not hip hop records, they're jazz records. There'll always be jazz records unless I'm touching them. So that's what I believe hip hop to be. So, you know, I wish people would stop saying, oh, that's soft, or I ain't listening to that, or that's country music. Shoot, Johnny Cash is hip hop. You seen Live from Folsom Prison? That's hip hop, yo, for real. You know, because it ain't a music. It's not even a feeling. It's more so of a process. It's like Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do. It's a process. It's not an art. And you know, and that's how I see what I do. And people like it, great. People like it, great. You know, I'm not making it for people to like or people to dislike. I'm making it because I have to. Because if I don't, it's gonna hurt in here. And that's what people should be aiming for when they make music. You know, instead of directing something or manufacturing, it should be organic. And you know, as far as shout outs, big up to Chuck, who just turned 50, him and Griff. You know, hit the half court line, as Chuck says. And he was a big mentor to me. Big up to everybody I've been working with. They've been really coming along great, and they've been, especially Son of Berserk, these guys, really worked hard and showed, man, I don't care what your age is or how long you've been out of the game, you can come back and you can be relevant, because irrelevance has nothing to do with record sales. It has to do with your mindset.